we're gonna find out. Can everyone back there hear me without the microphone? I talk pretty loud, so I shouldn't need a microphone. Like I said, my name is Chad Nelson. I'm the air traffic manager here at the St. Cloud Airport. I've been here for August will be 17 years. So I got here 3 months before the tower even opened. So anything that's happened at the airport in the last 17 years, I probably already know about it. But you can still come and tell me about it anyway. As far as what the air traffic control tower does on a day-to-day basis, our job is to keep you guys apart. Make sure you guys don't hit each other. Make sure you get your clearances. Make sure, you guys are safe when you're up there. Make sure to call you out when you do something you're not supposed to do. So every time I give a little speech to a group of pilots, one of the first things I like to tell all the pilots is, the controller's always right. You laugh, and everyone does every time I say that. And the reason why I say that is, if you do what the controller tells you to do, you're not going to get in trouble. My controller might get in trouble, but you're not going to get in trouble. So when I say that the controller's always right, obviously if he tells you to do something that's going to be dangerous, he's not right. But for the most part, if you do exactly what the controllers tell you to do, you guys aren't going to get in trouble. Like I said, my controllers might get in trouble for telling you to do something, but that's on me. I'll take care of that. You guys take care of you. So if you do what we tell you to do, you'll be fine. I had a whole presentation that I did on PowerPoint, and for some reason my laptop decided that it doesn't want to turn on anymore, so I can't get it off there. So you get to just listen to me talk for a little bit. They wanted me to go over some of the things that we expect from you guys as pilots, and some of the things that we see that you guys could do on a more consistent basis. One of the things that and I asked all my controllers, like, what do you want me to tell them about? When you guys go call up for taxi, don't call us up when you're back here by the hangars. One of our requirements is that we have to visually see you, know where you are, and identify you before we can give you any instructions. If you're calling us up back here behind the hangars, we can't see you. So I know a couple people that we've already told, hey, give me a call when you get up there because I don't know who you are. If there's a whole line of planes out here, I don't know which one you are. So best practice would be pull up to wherever you're going to be pulling out of. Say you pull up to the edge of the ramp over here by Echo Taxiway, give us a call. Say, 3517 Victor's ready to taxi, on the ramp by Echo. We want to depart this direction, we have the ATIS. We can look out there by Echo Taxiway and be like, all right, there he is, I can see him. And I can give you instructions from there. So that's one thing. Make sure you're reading back your clearances. So when we say you're clear to land, say you're clear to land. Something that pilots often do, and we do the same thing in the tower, we expect to hear a certain thing. So you may be on the ramp and we're on 3-1 and you know that we're on 3-1, you're going off the ramp, it's Echo Alpha cross runway 5 on Alpha, right? Well, we may have someone coming down, so we tell you to go out Alpha 4. What do I hear back 9 out of 10 times? Echo Alpha cross runway 5. Listen to what we're telling you and read it back. That is a big thing with the FAA is hear back, read back. So hear what we're telling you, read it back. If it's wrong, we're going to tell you. Let's see, what are some other things that I had in there? Those are the big ones. Making sure you let us know where you're going. Try and keep your transmissions together. Like, don't call me up from the ramp, say tower says a 3517 Victor, and then just stop. Like, I got 3 other people I need to talk to. What do you want? Now I got to come back to you and say, says a 3517 Victor, tower, go ahead. Then you're going to come back to me and you're going to tell me what you want. Then I got to come back to you and tell you to do it. Make that one transmission. Call me up, your initial transmission. Who you are, where you're going, you have the ATIS. All in one transmission. We'll hear you. If we don't, we'll ask. Same thing goes for you guys. If we tell you something, don't try and guess what we said. If you didn't hear us, ask us. We don't mind. I would rather you ask me, tower, say again, and we'll tell you again. Then you try and say, well, I think you said this, and you do it, and that's not what I told you to do. Now everybody's in trouble. I was just telling these guys over here, we had a Falcon do that just the other day. Came in opposite direction, we were landing on 1-3, he came in, did an approach to 3-1, during check ride in a Falcon. wanted to circle the land on runway 13. He was told to circle the south side of the airfield for a right downwind to 13. What does he do on his miss? Turns out to the right in front of a Cessna. So if one of you guys was flying 418 Echo Sierra that day and the Falcon came in front of you, we're sorry. We caught it as fast as we could. But those are the things that we're talking about. Hear what we tell you, read it back. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot. So I've got a lot of time, so I'm going to open it up to anything you guys want to know from the tower.
Something I've noticed in the last few months is I'll be coming back in and I'll say, I'll make an announcement, I'll say where I'm at, everything like that. And you'll say, okay, you're right downwind for 3-1, clear land. Or you're number 2 or 1, whatever. Okay, I'm coming in to land, I roll out, and nothing. And I'm sitting there on the runway, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do after you land?
You're on the ground and say, either I ask what I want to do and then they'll tell me where to go, but it'd be nice to get the instructions once you touch down so you know what you're going to do next.
Hey,
The way the AIM is written, your requirement when you land on the runway is to exit out of the first available safe runway or taxiway, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So you exit off that taxiway, then we're going to give you instructions.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you
I
which
landed,
taxiway.
I didn't hear anything, so I says, can I get off at Delta Echo? And he said, no, go to Alpha 4. He didn't want me to get off because there was somebody, but he didn't tell me that. I would have pulled off, and then he would have said, oh, hold up or whatever.
That would have been on the controller,
I know it
but
would have been on the controller, but I don't want to put it on anybody.
Right away, you see the land says, okay, this is, and I'm like, all of a sudden, like,
But let me point out, it's the pilot, when you land, you're supposed to exit the runway and decide what to do. They aren't supposed to tell you.
so I'll go a little further with that. I'll go a little further with that. Here in St. Cloud, and is different than so many other places that I've worked before, where our tower controller will give you taxi instructions. Most of the time, I would say here is, exit off at Delta, taxi Delta Echo to the ramp, remain this frequency. Even when we have a ground controller. And that's something that I'm working with my guys, to better train you guys, is doing exactly what you're supposed to. You turn off when you're able. You call ground control. Ground control is supposed to take you to where you're going. But for some reason, and I think it's got a lot to do with, we don't have a whole lot of traffic here compared to some of the places that we came for. We average, 38,000 operations a year, 40,000. I came from a place that averaged 450,000 operations a year. So for us, it's like, it's nothing for us. This is slow traffic. Go ahead, taxi them in. And we gotta break that habit. But you guys need to start that as well with, like you said, you stopped on the runway and you were waiting for us to tell you what to do. Well,
I didn't stop. I was rolling.
I understand that. You stayed on the runway until the controller told you where to go.
Right.
Turn off the runway.
Okay.
If there's a situation like you said where he wanted you to go down to Alpha 4, that's his problem. He should have told you that before you turned. Now you may end up sitting at, Echo or Delta Taxiway or wherever you turned off, waiting for outbound traffic, but
Command does not stop when you hit the runway. you still dictate where you go, get off.
Hey Chad, are those policies different though from tower to tower, airport to airport? 'Cause like
which
landing-
policies?
Well, landing at Flying Cloud, I mean, I'm told most of the time which taxiway to turn off on by the tower and contact ground. So, is it?
It's a procedural thing
That's what I mean.
for them.
Yeah, the procedure's different.
Yeah, it's a procedural thing for them.
Okay.
But if you just go by what the AIM says, you're responsible as soon as you land. As soon as it's safe for you to turn off, you turn off at the first available taxiway. And then you hold short of any other crossing taxiways or runways and contact the ground control.
Trying to be patient. Shush. I'm talking. I guess I have two things there. One, so I'm an instructor here in St. Cloud.
Yep.
And when I'm teaching my students, I'm usually doing the old way you've been talking about where I land, we turn off onto the taxiway, we stay on tower, and then get instructions from there. You want me to start teaching my students to switch over to ground?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because if you guys start doing that, it'll force my controllers to do that.
All right. Perfect. I want to help you guys do that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, don't it say in the AM, do not go to ground until told by the tower to do so?
So,
I believe it says.
You should.
I'd have to look it back up, but I thought
You're
is that what it
supposed to
says?
exit the first available taxiway, not runway,
Not runway.
Not
We have
runway,
that
that's
happen all the time, too, but-
and then contact ground when by the tower. They did change the verbiage on that a little while ago. So it's a little different now. But yeah, they have some driving.
And I can, I can look that up too.
Yeah.
But okay, well that's a new one on me. I always thought it was you were just turn off and contact ground once you clear the runway. But if it says in the game that you stay on tower frequency until they tell you to switch frequencies, that's fine. I can train my controllers to do that. But it's still your responsibility to get off that runway. And a lot of the reasoning behind that is, I mean, like you said, you rolled down the runway and you waited for them to tell you to turn off. They may have someone coming right up your butt. And they don't have time to tell you to turn off because they're talking to somebody else.
In this case, he had a Cessna on the taxiway, so he didn't really want me to turn off there. So I asked, can I exit on Echo? And he said, no, go to Alpha 4.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I could see why he wanted that, but he didn't tell me. I was expecting him to tell me turn off at Alpha 4 rather than me asking if I can get off here, and then he says, no, go to Alpha 4.
And that's
Seemed like
exactly
he
what,
would've just said,
you're right, that's exactly what he should have told you. If that was his plan, he should have told you to continue down the runway and exit off at Alpha 4.
The idea was his plan after I asked.
It was probably me controlling that day.
Part of the bigger issue that I think we were talking about is we get into the customs of what we do here, which is tower, taxi, echo, alpha, cross border fly, whatever. The problem is if we're teaching somebody to fly here, we're teaching them to fly in the airspace, and now they go to another airport that handles things a little different. So what you're saying is you got to get your guys more accustomed to us coming off, calling ground, and then whatever. So,
And a lot of that for us comes from every one of my controllers is a former military controller. And they're all coming here used to pilots who know exactly what they're doing. There's no training involved. Okay, there's a little bit of training, but they know what they're doing. It's not, I don't have a student solo coming out who this may be the first time he's in that airplane by himself. I'm not going to get that at NES Meridian where they have 450,000 operations. But I'm going to get that here. And that's something that they need to learn as far as my controllers are concerned, that you're not dealing with that environment anymore. You're not dealing with pilots who are always going to know what they're doing. It's not a completely structured environment like it is in the military. And that's kind of where they're all coming from. And like I said, every one of my controllers is an ex-military controller. So I would hope that by now, after 16 years, I've kind of broke myself of a lot of those habits, but it still comes out every once in a while. I still get some of you guys call me up and be like, hey, slow down when you talk. Because I get on the radio and I talk fast. Especially when I get busy, I talk really fast. Because it clicks back in my mind, I got 20 planes in the pattern when I'm working in Meridian. I got 20 planes, I don't have time to not talk. And I don't have time for you to ask me a bunch of questions on the radio either. It's like, do what you're told. So, after 16 years of being here, I've kind of gotten a lot better at that, I hope. But, so, I mean, that's kind of, it's a learning curve all the way around. It's a learning curve for my guys. I got a guy up there right now who, spent the last year and a half in Korea. And now he's fresh out of the Air Force and controlling here. He's going from military fighters to Cessna 150s. It's a big learning curve, They're not doing 250 knots in the pattern, It's just not going to happen. So, it's a learning curve for him. So it's learning for everybody. And don't ever feel afraid. I'm sure everyone in here has the tower phone number. Be afraid to call me. Say, hey, this happened. Is this right? Should I do something different? Did you guys do something? Is there something you guys can do different? Don't be afraid to call me. We're just people up there. It's just guys like me up there. It's nothing to be scared of. And I know COVID has been a little weird. We used to have you guys bring all your students up and introduce them, and so they can see, hey, they're just people. We're not here to try and write you up. We don't want that because I hate paperwork. And every time something happens, I have to come into work and do the paperwork. So we want to work with you guys. If there's something we're doing wrong, call me and tell me. If there's something you're not sure about, call me. I think in my first few years here, I think Dave called me at least 20 times a week. Like, hey, is this the way this is supposed to be?
He's
yeah,
lonely.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
Forgot about that.
I'm sorry, Dave, I had to pick on you, but
number one, I want to thank you for coming here, because I hear nothing but good things about our tower. Everyone just says they're the greatest, and
We try.
they did change that, a couple of things. They did change, they used to say, contact ground when told to do so by the tower. Now what they say is once all parts of the aircraft have crossed the runway hold position marking, the pilot must hold unless further instructions have been issued by ATC. So they changed that, I don't know, it's been a couple of years, I suppose, since they changed that. But
Yeah, so once you're out, and I agree with that, once you're off the runway, you don't cross another taxiway, runway, nothing until you're told to.
You gotta remember that our great governor said that everything north of Minneapolis is only good for rocks.
We're rocks and cows. Yeah, we're all rocks and cows. I was born and raised up here in rocks and cow land. So I was born in Melrose, Minnesota, and I went to moved down to Anoka and went to Anoka High School. So
yeah,
and this is home for me.
And Chad, he just did inform me down a little further. It does say immediately change the ground control frequency when advised by the tower, and obtain a taxi clearance. So, but anyways,
When advised by the tower to do so.
So a couple of things. One change that I've noticed is, like you said, I know IFR, you're always saying that. When you call up for your clearance to taxi, say you're ready to taxi. So I've been teaching everyone now, say you're ready to taxi.
Yep.
And you want that, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Thanks for bringing that. Yeah, that was another one. So you call, don't call up. You're sitting over here in the line. You say, hey, 418X here. We're, taxi for departure, blah blah blah, and we tell you taxi via Echo Alpha Cross Runway 5, and 5 minutes later, you're still sitting on the ramp. Don't call me till you're ready to go. And it happens every day. Somebody will call up and be like, hey, looking for taxi instructions to depart north, whatever. Taxi Echo Alpha Cross 523 Alpha. Start controlling other planes and doing other things. You look out and you're like, where is that guy? You said you taxied him out. Where is he at? And you look out and you're still sitting on the ramp. Don't call until you're ready.
One more thing, don't call and say you're ready to take off and you're still sitting in the run-up area.
Yeah.
Tell you, don't call from the run-up area. Say I'm ready for takeoff. No, you're not. Get up to the hold short. Call me from the hold short. Hey, we're holding short of the runway. We're ready to go.
And, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, throwing in another topic, the one thing I see given flight tests and just flying around here is position reporting. And I think now you have some ability, I think you have something ADSB or something in the tower to give you some help, but technically you don't have radar. So I just thought maybe you want to make a couple comments about how accurate position reporting
Yes.
to help you guys out, because I see very inaccurate position
Be
reporting.
very specific about where you're at and be accurate with where you're at. It's getting better, like you said. We do have the capability of tracking ADSB in the tower now. We can't use it for anything control related. I can use it to look at, and when you say I'm 5 miles west of the airfield, I can look on there and be like, you're 5 miles east of the airfield. Heading westbound. And I can use it for that. And I mean, it's funny, but it happens every day. It's like, hey, we're 5 miles west of the airfield inbound. All right, report it right down for runway 13. Okay, or left down 1431. I'm backwards now. But we tell you, and then you're like, well, a base would work better. I'm like, how do you get from base for 31 from way out there? Like, oh, well, we're actually over here. Okay, well, that's different. Like I said, with that ADSB, it's a little bit better, but we can only track one type of, there's two, you all know there's two different frequencies for ADSB. We can only track one of them. We don't have the capability of tracking them both. So there's a lot of people we still can't see, but it does help a little bit. It has alleviated a little bit of that problem, but, try to just be accurate with where you're at. Take another extra second. You look down and be like, I'm heading westbound. There's no way in heck I can be west of the field if I'm westbound towards the airport. But it happens every day. So, we don't have any guard pilots in here, do we, that are part of the EA? They're the worst. They'll take off and say, we're going to depart the area to the south, which is that way, and they'll go that way. So I had the guard guys come out and was like, hey, is there anything that we can do differently? I was like, yeah, fix your compasses. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, obviously you have old compasses that only have 4 points on them because it's either north, south, east, or west. There's no southeast, northwest, nothing. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, every time you pilots call up and say, we're going southbound. And they'll go straight across my approach corridor for runway 31. He's like, oh, well, we'll fix that. Okay? 3 months later, they come back up to the tower. What can we fix? Fix your compasses. It never gets fixed. But, yeah, I mean, thank you. Position reports, it's the only way we have of legally controlling you. I can't use that ADSB to control you. I have to go by what you're telling me. I can look at that and be like, are you sure? And then you come back and say, yeah, no, we're really less. So we have to kind of go by that.
She had a question first.
Okay, so I'm a pilot. I did not take my training at, a controlled field.
Right.
So honestly, I've flown in here a few times. It's intimidating for me because I feel like I have to repeat back what they're saying. But I don't remember everything, that you guys said, so then I just, I guess my question, for someone who doesn't fly into a controlled airport very often but wants to get better and more confident at that, could you, kind of run through, what, a scenario of, what I should do, once I land? I'm hearing that we can just get off on any taxiway, we don't have to wait for you guys.
Well, and like it says in the game, unless we give you a specific instruction, we might. In that situation, you should have. But we may, if you land on 3-1 and we have someone taxiing down, coming out, we may tell you to continue down to Alpha 4 and exit out there. But in lieu of getting an instruction from the tower, you are supposed to, as soon as it's safe, exit the runway at the first available taxiway. And then once you clear the runway, contact the tower and switch over to the ground. The tower controller should tell you to switch over to the ground. So,
Follow up, progressive taxi. You come into a field like this, and all of a sudden, Echo Alpha, turn right on Charlie. Oh, wait a minute now. Where's the chart? How do I get there? If I look down at the chart, I'm gonna hit somebody. So,
just key up and say you want progressive taxi.
yes,
And we'll
that's
do
not a
that.
problem.
No, absolutely not. I'd rather you do that than end up over here on the AT ramp like we have a lot of people do. And then they're like, hey, where's the FBO? I'm like, on the other ramp. And then you tell them to go out, on Charlie and go around the side of the way and they'll cut through the road.
When somebody asks for progressive, do you keep an eye on them more
Yes.
than you do? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we don't cross a double line where we're not supposed to cross a double line?
Right.
Okay. Because like her, I don't go into control fields very often. And you get a long lingo of numbers, or letters, I should say.
Yeah.
And all of a
Oh,
sudden,
by all means, if you don't know where that
I
is,
stop and say, okay, which way and how far?
yeah, if you don't know, if you're unfamiliar with the field, regardless of what field it is, just ask the controller. Say, hey, can I get progressive? I'm unfamiliar with the field. And they'll give it to you.
Follow up. Has anybody called you flying cloud instead of say
All the time,
cloud?
every day.
Because I did that and I got chewed out.
Every day. Usually if it happens to me, I'll just key up and I'll just make sure I say cloud tower.
Yeah.
So just reiterate that. But yeah, it happens all the time.
What's the kind of the general procedure on prevailing winds? I mean, I always hear runway 1331 landing and departing. If it's clearly 523, the winds are out of. Do you guys?
So you're never gonna hear us call runway 5 or 23 the active runway. It's always available. So that's not a problem. If you ever want to use it, it's always available unless there's construction going on. But it's always available. But we're never gonna assign that as the active runway for the simple fact that anything higher than a twin or anything bigger than a twin Cessna can't land on it.
Right.
So we're not gonna make that our active runway for the simple fact that we want an active runway that is available to everybody. So it's always either gonna be 13 or 31. So when we pick our runway, if the winds are calm, it's gonna be 3-1. 3-1 is the calm wind runway at St. Cloud. So anything under 5 knots is gonna be on runway 3-1. Now that may not always happen because I may look at the tab at the what the winds are going to do, and they're gonna be 140 and they're gonna kick up to 10-15 knots later. We may just start on 13 and just keep it there. That way we don't have to do a runway change later. But calm wind runway is gonna be runway 3-1. If it's above 5 knots, then we are going to pick the runway most aligned with the wind. Obviously, if it's a direct crosswind, then it's gonna flip a coin. It's going to be controller's choice what he wants to use. Usually they'll look at the TAF and be like, all right, which way is it going to favor the most, and go that way. But runway 523 is always available to you guys. You know,
If we would wanna use runway, which one is it?
5123.
Okay, yep. If we wanted to use that one, could we ask if it's okay?
Absolutely.
you're saying?
Yeah, it's always available. So when you're ready to taxi out, if you want to use 5023,
Okay.
just key up and be like, 418 Echo Sierra, we're ready to taxi, requesting runway 523 for departure out to the west. We have Alpha.
Okay, thanks. And then like once you guys give me like clearance to depart, like if I wanna depart, like say to the west, is it okay, for me to ask, that I would like to depart to the west, and then you would tell me differently if it wasn't safe to at that time? Does that make sense?
Well, if you want to depart to the west, we're going to find a way to get you out to the west, whether that means holding you a little longer till traffic's out of the way, or turning you on a different, make a right turn and come back around to avoid the traffic, or what. We'll get you the direction you want to go. We're never going to say it's not safe to go to the west. Unless there's a huge thunderstorm out there, then we might be like,
Well,
did you look at the weather before you take off? The west might not be a good idea. I can't tell you can't go to the west, but I'm probably going to say, you might want to look at the weather, and there's some stuff coming that you may want to take a look at.
No, thanks. No, that helps me, that answers.
So yeah, and even if you're coming in, if we're on 3-1 and the winds are 220 at 10 or whatever, you're like, hey, can I land on 2-3?
Here's what
Yeah,
I'll add.
absolutely.
Here's what I'll add. I'll add this big time. If anybody ever is intimidated by the tower, push the mic and speak English. Just talk.
No, say you're a student pilot.
Yeah, you want to get special handling. Just key up and say just key up and say you're a student solo. You're probably going to get preferential treatment. We're going to keep an eye on you a little closer.
Well, I have something to add concerning this intimidation factor from pilots who have really flown the pilot-controlled airfields. And before they qualify for their check ride, they need, I think, 3 takeoffs and landings at a tower airport. And that's about all the experience you get some of the times. I know 2 people that were involved with general aviation that wall of talking to ACT took them out of general aviation. It was too much for them. That's why I decided to start training here. And I just acquired my PPL in March, so I'm kind of a newbie too. So I started here. And what I would recommend, and if you don't go to tower airports because of that, half this country's geography is gone for you. So you don't have access to it. So I recommend that you get another pilot friend that's good on the radio, that has been in here, and let that pilot run the radio. And you do, you come off the ramp and shut down, and go back on, and make different requests, and you just listen how it is. Or hire one of the CFIs and get in the pattern of what they think is going to be a busy day. So you're dealing with other patterns, and other traffic, and you get extended downwinds and things like that. Spend a little money, and the intimidation factor starts going away. When you know you got to do it, all makes sense. It starts really coming, and that's money well spent in training. So that's something you can do.
Yep. And another way to kind of get a little more familiar with is go on liveatc.com. Listen to it. You can hear just about any controlled airport out there and listen to what they're saying.
And the other thing too is like there's a phraseology that I know what he's gonna say before he says it. So when you queue up and you say something, I'm expecting to hear a very specific thing back. And that's why they can talk so fast and you can understand what they're saying. It's just like when you fly IFR, it's like, it's not this gobbledygook. It is a very specific orderly statement that you're expecting in that order. And when he gives it in that order, then you can comprehend it. If he gave it out of order, it'd be like a mess.
One little comment I was just going to make really quick, it might be amusing. Pilots who train, a lot of pilots who just train at tower airports are intimidated to fly at non-tower airports.
There is truth to that, for sure. Yeah. Now, Chad, one of the things I like to incorporate is when we're all flying, try to have that person who's flying visualize what the traffic pattern is looking like and how you're sorting things, right? So what I try to tell people, especially if they hear someone else that may be in their vicinity, well, number one, don't trust what the other pilot's saying because they're probably not right. And number two, to state your altitude, so you don't have to come back and say, hey, what Echo Sierra, what's your altitude? Because there's another guy right next to you at 10 miles out. So is that okay to do that?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I know it adds a little bit, but stating your altitude.
I guess I'd rather you give me more information than not enough information. So, yeah, I mean, are you required to give me your altitude? No, but it helps.
Yeah.
I find that one of the things missing oftentimes is the altitude report. People will say where they are, but they don't say how high. And as another pilot flying around in the pattern, it really helps if you know how high they are as well as where they are.
Right.
So that's just, I hear it.
And as far as reporting to us to the tower, you're not required to give that altitude
No,
report.
it's just helpful.
But like you said, it alleviates another transmission. So if you call me up with your altitude and there's another pilot coming, and I give you traffic or give him traffic on you, and obviously I'm going to give you traffic on him,
Sure.
I don't have to go back to you and say, what was your altitude?
Right.
I already know that, and odds are he probably already heard it.
And obviously, for close to the airport, I say don't include your altitude because they know you're going to be at pattern altitude.
Right. Well, unless you're transitioning the airspace at 7,000 feet when my airspace only goes up to 3,500.
You don't need to do that?
No. But the thing about that is, like, just to show you that, even as controllers, we do screw stuff up too. I've had to get on my controllers many times because the pilot will call up and say request transition through the airspace north to south at 7,000 feet. So-and-so transition approved. Report clear to the south. I was like, you just cleared someone to transition through someone else's airspace. And they were doing it all the time. And I never caught it until one day I was up in the tower and happened to be listening. I was like, what did you just say? Well, I told him he could go through. I was like, he's 3,500 feet above your altitude, above your airspace. He doesn't even need to talk to you. You just cleared him through center's airspace. So for us, that actually is a violation, and we could have gotten in trouble. We never have, but.
You mentioned a little while ago about talking fast, and that's always a potential problem. It doesn't actually happen too often, but I've analyzed that. One time I was out flying with a friend, and we could not understand what the wind direction and velocity was on the ATIS. We figured out the reason why is because the ATIS was given all in one breath, all the words and numbers were all together. And so it's not so much how fast you talk, but if you put tiny breaks between the elements of the report, then it's easy to understand.
Was it on Friday?
Was it a Friday? That was me. Like I said, I'm probably the most guilty person in the tower of talking too fast. And I know that, and I try.
Well, but it's not, my point is it's not really too fast, it's not breaking it apart so it's clear to hear.
Right.
It'll slow you down just a tiny fraction, but it's way different than saying that, so talking really slow, that doesn't do anybody any good either.
Kind of a challenge to us to see if we can do it.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you put spaces between the elements, then you can say it really fast and you still hear it.
And then, the sad thing is the only like way of checking the ATIS, or the requirement for checking the ATIS, is the person who actually cuts the ATIS listens to it again. Well, I just cut it. I know what it says,
right,
so I can understand it perfectly. Like, that's good. I heard it, and it goes out there. So same thing with me talking too fast. I know what I said.
The real funny is when they say whiskey and then Victor on the same ATIS cut.
That was me. I know that one. I actually did that. And the thing was, and the reason I did that is because it was Victor at the front and whiskey at the end, because I still had Victor written down and I hadn't changed it yet, and I was cutting whiskey. I was like, I know it's whiskey, so I'm cutting it. And then halfway through I forgot, and I looked back and it still said Victor, so I said Victor at the end. And somebody called me on the radio and said, hey, is it whiskey or Victor? Because it says both.
That's not the first time that's
Chad,
happened.
is it okay for students to come up now, or?
It is. We have to keep it below 4 people at a time.
Okay, thank you.
So that just changed. Well, actually, that goes into effect tomorrow. So, no, yesterday. Forgetting what day it is. So, yeah, as of now, we can have up to 4 people at a time in the tower. It has to be during the daytime when there's at least 2 people there. So they did change that requirement. We used to just allow it, anytime. But for safety purposes, they want 2 people up there now. I guess there was an issue at some other airport where the controller was giving a tour and something happened behind him and he wasn't paying attention. So now there has to be 2 people on the tower.
That's good, because the students really miss that, and I think it, well, it gives them a chance to say thank you.
So,
For,
and you know, like I said earlier, come up there. You guys aren't, most of you, a lot of you aren't students anymore, but call us up, come up. See what we do. Look at our view. We got the best view in St. Cloud. I can see 13 miles on the ground from up in my tower. So,
You got any comments about our young eagle flights? Anything from the tower that helped us?
well, let's see. I heard somebody threw up, and there was a mechanical issue, and someone had to turn around. Am I about right? Did that happen this weekend? Someone got sick in the airplane.
The sick part happened.
Yeah, and then someone
I
like.
had somebody who just goes, so I had to.
Is that what you? Yeah, okay, that's what it was. So no, I mean they said you guys did great. The only thing that they had, not from this one, but I think it was the last one that you did with the adults that were flying. It wasn't a young Eagles thing, but you were flying like adult pilot people or whatever. Was be cognizant of how you're lining up the airplanes. Don't put someone who's going to fly the pattern, going to fly at 70 knots in front of an RV that's going to do 150 knots. It doesn't work. So just kind of be aware of that kind of thing, like performance of the airplanes. Keep the faster guys up front. If the last guy wants to go slow, that's fine. It's a lot easier for the last guy to go slow than the first guy. But other than that, I mean, we have no complaints.
Or would
as
you
far as young
recommend
Eagles.
in a situation like that, maybe you have 2 different flight patterns going, so one maybe goes out a different direction, or would you prefer they all keep in the same
We would
pattern?
prefer that we keep it all the same, for the simple fact that if we guys, let's say we're on 301, we have you guys going out to the left, coming back around this way. That leaves the whole other side of the airspace and the whole other side of the runway available for anyone coming in. So we can keep everyone away from you guys. If we got you guys going in 2 different directions, now we gotta, no matter where somebody comes from, I'm gonna have to get in the middle of you guys somehow.
Okay.
Just quick, whatever happened in Colorado with the 2 airplanes hit, because the news when I first read it, they said they both had clearance to land.
It was,
Serious crossed over.
yeah.
Parallel runways.
They were parallel runways.
Yeah, and he
So they were both cleared to land, one drifted over, hit the other one. So they were right, they probably both had clearance to land on different runways.
well, one couldn't land the same one the other one did.
Right, so.
So,
Last one, because I have to be at the fire department in like 15 minutes.
yeah,
So.
no problem. It's an instrument one, so different than VFR, but.
Go ahead.
So we get our instrument clearance on the ground, we taxi up to the runway. I call up Echo Sierra, hold short runway, 13, say hold short for release. What is the communication like with center on your end?
So because we don't have radar on the tower, so we don't have a star system or anything like that, and that's basically an automated release system kind of thing where we push a button saying this guy's ready to take off, they push a button saying let him go. We actually have to call them and verbally get your release.
Okay.
So when you call up, we give you your clearance, you taxi out, you get to the runway. I have to call Sector 10, Minneapolis Center, say so-and-so is ready to depart IFR for runway 31. They're going to come back and say he's released, or fly head this heading released, maintain this altitude, give me an instruction, and then we have to relay that back to you.
Okay.
So the reason why you may have to hold for a release is they're busy. I actually have to physically get them on the line in order to get your release.
Gotcha.
So
Do you want us sitting at the end, waiting, lined up?
absolutely, because as soon as I get your release, I can punch you out. If you call me for your release while you're sitting in the hold short, and they give me your release, and you take forever to get up there, your release is only good for 3 minutes. So as soon as you get up there, you're ready to go. I get that release, I can punch you out.
Chad, any problems if it's clear, if you say, hey, I'll just take a VFR departure and call in the air? Any issues?
There's no issue legally, you can do that. The downside for you might be if they're busy, they may not give you your clearance. Now you're going VFR all the way. So it's going to be up to that center controller whether they want to give you that clearance or not.
If you're going to Chicago, then you know anyway.
Right. So, but that's all I got for you guys, man. Woo! Like I said, before I walk out and go to the fire department, the last thing I'll tell you, like I said, give us a call. Come up, visit. We don't mind you guys coming up. We're allowed to have you up there now. Just don't bring like 20 people with you. minimum.
Is your phone number in the
Maximum of 4 people.
in the book?
What's that?
Is your phone number in the
My office number is, yes.
Okay.
The tower cab number is not in there, but my office number is in there, so go ahead and give me a call.
You have to be notified ahead of time, correct?
Yes.
How much
So-
notice?
Depending on how busy, if we're not busy and you call me up, say, hey, can we come up? I'll be like, yeah, come on out. If we're busy, you call up, can I come out right now? No. You know. But if you want to make sure, I would call like the day before.
Okay.
So, and like I said, it's, you know, we're going to be pretty limited to the hours of 9 to 5 because that's when we have 2 people up there. So, other than that, I won't be able to allow people up there.
Generally, when's the best time to try?
Not at noon, that's lunch.
Well, we eat on position, so that's not a big deal. I mean, it really depends on traffic. I mean, we have days where first thing in the morning we're super busy and then we don't do anything for a while. I mean, there's really no way to say, you know, I mean, what would be the best time? 9 o'clock at night because nobody's flying, but I can't let you up there at 9 o'clock at night. But
You can't see anything anyway.
between 9 and 5, usually, no matter how busy we are, we can usually get you up there during the week because we have 2 controllers up there and I'm there. So I'm not one of the controllers. So even if we're busy and those 2 controllers are busy, I can still bring you up to the tower. So those hours, usually, unless I'm not there, are going to be pretty good. So that's all I got.
All right.
Give us a call. Come visit.
Alright, a few quick reminders before we turn you guys loose. Again, the raffle tickets for the Isle Airport are up here. If there